I was holding a warm apple pie, my mother's favorite, which I had baked all night from her old recipe. Rain drizzled outside my window, and I drove home for 2 hours through the wet streets, hoping for a warm welcome this Thanksgiving. I was only 17 and pregnant. It was supposed to be a special holiday, a moment of joy and support. But when I stepped through the door, my father met me with a cold stare and words that pierced through me. Pay back the $40,000 missing from Grandma's account, or don't come back here again. There was a heavy silence in the room. Mom lowered her eyes, as if afraid to look at me. My sister was silent, but I could see her tenseness, her eyes red with tears. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, the pie trembling in my hands as if it were the last thing keeping me here. This pie was a symbol of love and family traditions that were now crumbling before my eyes. The whole festive atmosphere was dispelled in an instant. There was no prayer, no warm words, only suspicion and accusations. I tried to understand what was going on. Where are the people who always said that family is the most important thing? Why did I become a suspect now, like a criminal? My mind was flitting between despair and shock. I was scared, not only because I was being accused of stealing, but also because I was pregnant and needed support. I thought I could find understanding in them, but they turned away, believing a lie that could destroy everything. I remembered the last time I'd helped my mom set up her new bank account, sitting together in the evenings, figuring out passwords and apps. I'd been there to protect her, and now I was being accused of betrayal. My father's every word cut like a knife, and I couldn't say a word in my own defense, my heart clenched in pain and a bitter tear frozen in my throat. The pie in my hands was suddenly heavy, as if to remind me that this day was the beginning of the end. I wasn't just the accused, I was a stranger in my own family. I looked at the faces of those who should have loved me unconditionally and found nothing but cold suspicion and disappointment. I put the pie on the table, trying not to burst into tears, and slowly looked up. At that moment, I realized that I was no longer their daughter, I was their enemy. The party was over before it began, and I had to figure out how to go on with my life when my family turned their backs. After that cold evening, I couldn't stay home. My heart ached with more than just resentment. I was pregnant, and now more than ever, I needed peace of mind and support. I packed my things and drove to the motel by the highway that I'd always seen from the car window, but never stopped. The night was dark and quiet, with only the rain drumming quietly on the roof. I took off my shoes, sat on the bed, and wrapped my arms around my belly. There was a new little miracle growing there, one that shouldn't have to suffer because of family discord. My mind was spinning. How could I end up here, at the age of 17, pregnant and rejected by my parents? At school and in life, I always tried to be an example, studied well, helped my mother, made plans for the future. But everything collapsed like a house of cards. They accused me of stealing, although I was sure of my innocence. I am a person who helps to uncover financial fraud, and now I am accused of deception. I turned on my laptop, trying to distract myself and focus on work. At the office, I was mature and confident, but here I was, a lost girl. My pregnancy, which I hadn't told anyone yet, was subscribed to DeepL Pro to edit this document. Visit www.deepl.com/pro for more information. Another secret I carried around with me. I knew in my heart that I had to act, to prove myself, but first I had to find the strength to get through this pain. Messages from her sister with reproaches and accusations came one after another. "You hurt us," she wrote. I wanted to reply, but I didn't have the strength. Instead, I closed my phone and looked out the window at the pouring rain. I didn't want to give up, but I didn't know where to start. At that moment, I realized that if my family thought I was a criminal, then I had to become a detective in my own life. I will search for the truth and will not let anyone destroy what is still left in my heart. My pregnancy is not a hindrance, but an incentive to fight and endure. I will do everything to regain trust, but the main thing is to save myself and my future child. The night passed in anxious thoughts, but as dawn broke, I knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter of my life. I will not let the accusations break me. On the contrary, I would use my knowledge and power to uncover the truth and reclaim my place in the world. I woke up the next day with a determination I had never had before. I wasn't just a pregnant teenager rejected by her family. I was a person who could understand the intricacies of financial fraud. My job is to uncover fraudulent schemes, and now I had to apply those skills to my personal life. I opened my laptop and immersed myself in researching the bank data where my grandmother's funds were kept. With access to information on an ongoing elder fraud case, I quickly found similar transactions on her account. Something didn't add up. I was accused of making online withdrawals, but I saw that the withdrawals were in person, from bank windows. Diving into the details, I asked the bank's compliance officer for copies of all transactions and surveillance videos from the past weeks. Soon I got the first evidence. The screen flashed with footage of someone in a sweatshirt and glasses walking up to the cash register and withdrawing money. At first I thought it was a stranger, but moments later I recognized familiar features. The recording showed the sister, confident and calm, signing documents and talking to the teller. Then there was my brother, who was also calmly withdrawing large sums of money. Everything pointed to them using my pregnancy and helping my mom to set me up. It pained me to see my family in that light, but I knew that only the truth could restore my honor. I decided to gather all the evidence and prepare to talk to them. I didn't want to destroy my family, but I couldn't let lies continue to rule our relationship. I had a difficult choice to make: to save myself and my child's future by standing up for the truth, or to give in to fear and lose everything. That day was a turning point. I stopped being a victim and became a fighter. I knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but for the sake of my child and my integrity, I was ready to go all the way. When I returned home with a folder full of evidence, tension was in the air. The house that had once seemed safe to me had turned into a battlefield. My sister sat on the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. My brother leaned against the refrigerator. My mother was quietly washing dishes, and my father was cooking on the stove. Everyone stopped when I walked in. I put the folder on the table, opened it, and in a voice shaking with restrained emotion, began to show the photos and videos. It was footage of my sister and brother withdrawing money from my grandmother's account and signing documents. I watched their faces carefully, waiting for a reaction. My sister tried to justify herself by accusing me of always getting everything: jobs, respect, success. My brother coldly said it wasn't personal, just a standard of living. My mother was depressed, and my father was silent, as if trying to gather his thoughts. At that moment, I realized that the family was broken not because of money, but because of old resentments, jealousy, and mistrust. I was no longer considered a daughter, and my sister and brother had chosen the path of lies and betrayal. This conversation was my final farewell to what I called home, but I didn't give up. I knew the truth now, and it gave me the strength to move on, for myself and my baby's future. My family may have been destroyed, but my life was just beginning. After that painful conversation, I could no longer live in the past. I started a new chapter of my life. I discovered the meaning of helping others. I organized courses for elderly people where I told them how to protect themselves from financial scammers. My pregnancy gave me additional strength and purpose. I wanted my child to grow up in a world where honesty and care are more important than anything else. Time healed the wounds, but the memory of betrayal remained. My mother apologized over the phone, but I knew that trust could not be repaid with a single word. I kept the folder with the evidence, not for the court, but as a reminder that truth is always more important than lies. The family chose their path, I chose mine. I stopped waiting for recognition and started building a life based on love for myself and the future. It was a difficult path, but now I walked it with confidence and hope.